And good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans. Glad to have you folks back. And welcome in, folks, to the WNBA 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home for everything revolving around the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball universe. Back with you, folks, on an abbreviated week and abbreviated edition of tonight's edition of WNBA 365 with the first installment of Training Camp Central. Good evening, folks. Joined, of course, this evening by Eric Nemchok from today's Fast Break in Elmhurst, Illinois, and, of course, all of our folks in Southern California. Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart joining us from L.A., and, of course, Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego. Guys, good evening. Good to see you. Training camp underway. A lot of other big news we'll get to over the next half an hour of coverage. Other than that, how's it going tonight?
Hey, hey. Very windy tonight.
Hi.
Yeah, we'll get to that momentarily, folks. But, of course, hit us up on social media tonight, of course, on Twitter, wide open for you folks at WNBA65, at Calamac3, at ShortyMama24, at Pup1010, Red Nemchocky, with the hashtag WNBA365. Or if you're going to be viewing us live today, be sure to hit up the live chat box. We'll get to your commentary whenever we have a chance to get to your commentary this evening. All right, guys, so obviously we'll kind of put the bigger story of the day kind of on the lower pedestal right now, of course, guys. The second full day of WNBA training camp across the USA with all 12 teams, bringing in all their players to scout and look at for the 2016 season. Of course, guys, we saw with the LA Sparks roster that Sue Faber of Hoopism put out on Twitter, 21 players in camp in Los Angeles. Of course, the other big story is Penny Taylor back with the Mercury, while Diana Taurasi is still overseas right now, awaiting her return back to Phoenix after the end of her overseas commitments to UMMC Ekaterinburg. Of course, guys, the Dallas Wings held an open practice yesterday at their brand new home down there in Arlington at the wonderful arena down there. They have a really good turnout there. A lot of teams have been putting out either GIFs or putting out video on Twitter that we've been able to retweet for you folks on Twitter over the past couple days. So, Shorty, as you go around and you see all the stuff going on, either the Dallas Open House, the Sparks have 21 players on their training camp roster right now. Of course, Penny Taylor back in the fray in Phoenix. Shorty, what has been the biggest storyline that you've seen so far over the past 48 hours of WNBA training camp?
Well, I wouldn't say there was one big storyline necessarily, but across the 12 teams, I mean, there was a lot of action, a lot of teams, as she brought up, Sparks at a lot of videos and clips that they shared. I've seen a lot from the Indiana Fever as well, seen some clips from the New York Liberty. I say Connecticut and Washington, they've had stories written about them, but they're pretty silent. But, from everyone else, it was really interesting to watch. Oh, man, Dallas. One of the season ticket holders went to one of their open practices, as you just mentioned, and got some really good shots there, some really good video. Oh, man, Glory Johnson coming back from pregnancy, looking good, still flying and gliding across the court. But from everyone else, it was just interesting to see, opening day of training camp.
Crystal, like Shorty just brought up, though, of course, a Dallas season ticket holder, of course, that kind of periscoped or put out video clips from the open house practice on Sunday, and Glory Johnson being a pretty big storyline, too. Of course, missing the first 7 games, serving her suspension from last season. And then you do go to other parts, and as Shorty said, though, too, the Sun and Mystics have had, articles written that they've kind of been a little bit low-key. The Fevers put out a lot of good stuff and content on their social media. Of course, the Mercury had an exclusive interview with Penny Taylor following practice today in Phoenix. The LA Sparks sent their street team out across LA for photo opportunities and a chance to win VIP tickets to the home opener this season. And as I said, though, too, as well, 21 players in Los Angeles at the Galen Center on the campus of the University of Southern California, all auditioning for the 20th season roster for Los Angeles. But, Crystal, as you look around the league, though, I'd probably say in 2 days, what has been your biggest training camp storyline thus far?
I guess the biggest one would be Nneka Nkapali getting cut because she didn't pass a physical. I'm thinking it has a lot to do with probably the injury that she received when she was in college. Like Shorty said, I actually watched some of Dallas's training camp practice. Glory Johnson did look very good. She's looking really athletic. It looks like she actually might be back to her old self. And that was kind of it. I mean, people have been pretty quiet or haven't really had many videos thus far.
You know, and Eric, I guess I'd probably say for Chicago, at least they've had a pretty funny photos of either Cheyenne Parker being passed out on the practice court after the first day of training camp. Amani Boyette shared some really good stuff though about her 2-day experiences via Twitter with some of the fans on there. Eric, I guess as you kind of hopscotch around the league though, you know, what have you I guess kind of noticed though in regards to either team storylines or what have you kind of seen though over the past 2 days though for the opening 2 days of training camp?
Well, in general, I think it looks like the teams are really trying harder on social media. Whether it be through just like vines or short videos or Instagram posts or what have you, and I think that's really cool because it's you're not just gonna get people watching just when the season starts. If it gets to help people get hyped up. I'm not sure if there was really a standout storyline. I would agree with Crystal that NECA and Impali getting cut on the first day was pretty significant, but again, it was because she failed the physical, so not really that much of a surprise knowing that information. Other than that. It's still pretty early. I mean, training camp just started this past weekend, so people are just getting a feel for things so far. And once the cuts start happening, then we'll be able to get some better storylines, I think.
Yeah, we've already had a few minor stories, but folks, over the course of Training Camp Central, this will be the show that will lead you all the way up until the opening tip-off of the season on May 14th. But we'll have either, folks, some spattering of days. We'll be having some off days, though, when there are games on, and we will only come on at night to recap those preseason games. Obviously, we won't be a lot to talk about, but we'll have more about that, though, a little bit later in the program. And shortly, let's kind of go back, though, to the Wings, because you guys have already brought up that storyline, though, in regards to, Glory Johnson being back on the court. And again, Shorty, we've seen some, former players, current players, even between Tina Thompson, Lisa Leslie, Candace Parker, all, give birth to a child, and they've come back in pretty good spirits. And at least the videos from me showed that, Glory, after that 7-game hiatus for the suspension, that she could be a pretty big X factor and kind of being the Glory Johnson of old, I think. Shorty, I'd probably ask, though, in such a pretty big year for Dallas, and like I've said, they've been the team I've kind of been intrigued by so far this offseason with all the moves that they've made, and of course they have a brand new identity being in the Dallas area. Shorty, I guess when Glory Johnson does come back, I'm probably going to ask, though, how does she impact this Dallas team when she does return following that 7-game suspension?
Oh my goodness. I think she'll, make a big impact. A lot of, they did have post present with Courtney Paris, and they had Planette Pearson, and like those players in that matter. But they're going to even be more explosive once Glory Johnson comes back, because I felt like that a lot of what she brought to the table was missing last season, and it was so evident, like I said. But, once she gets back, just the explosiveness of Glory Johnson will be well needed for the Dallas Wings, even though she kind of plays out of control somewhat in certain instances. But I think she will be much more under control after she comes back from the 7-game suspension, and she'll be well ready to go.
So, Crystal, we're going to change books on and go from Dallas. How about we go to Los Angeles now with the Sparks, of course. Crystal, of course, them, the Mercury, and Liberty are the only 3 teams celebrating their official 20th season in the league. Of course, they have all the, shenanigans pretty much of the special 20th season logo on their jerseys. The Sparks today were out in the community across the Los Angeles area promoting their, doing their part of promotion, I guess, in regards to going to various landmarks in Los Angeles, giving out a chance to win VIP seats to the home opener on May 15th versus Seattle. And again, Chris, I think, though, as well, that the Sparks have 21 players right now currently on their preseason / training camp roster. Obviously, we'll see a few of those players come and go as we please. But I think, Crystal, in regards, though, to Los Angeles specifically, with them only having Candace Parker and Essence Carson as the 2 main vets leading camp right now at this point. I guess, Crystal, what are your early thoughts, though, as you kind of see, for one, Los Angeles with this big roster for training camp, but also the fact that Parker and Carson are the lone 2 vets right now really leading these young kids right now through the first couple workouts?
I think LA is trying to probably find some guards, maybe some backup guards, and potentially help in the position that they're lacking, which is point guard. So I think that has to do with why there's so many people in training camp. And I also think they need those extra bodies to to get the practices going, to get the training camps going. But I do think they're also trying to see who can possibly make their roster for an extra bench spot because we all know LA lacks in bench production.
So, Eric, I guess we'll kind of go to you and just get your thoughts on what you've seen so far from the Chicago Sky. Obviously, them, I think they're in a good spot, I think, to still be in the mix in the postseason, for this season. I think that there's a good mixture and good core that they have in place. But, Eric, in regards to what you may have seen or heard from either players or what you may have seen across the Sky Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts, I guess, what are your early, aspirations and early thoughts on what you've seen so far from Chicago?
My early thoughts and aspirations. Well, let's see here. First of all, I think the rookies, particularly Imani Boyette, everyone's going to be watching her to see how quickly she picks up in Pokey's system, especially on defense. Because we all know she can block shots, but the WNBA defense is more than just blocking shots. And she said it herself on Twitter, like, there's a lot of stuff I need to learn, there's a lot I need to get better at, even though she really swatted one of the male practice squad members, and I'm sure that wasn't the first time that happened. But, I think just getting all the younger players up to speed, hopefully staying healthy, everybody staying healthy, because that's been an issue for us over the years. And, this early in training camp, it's hard to really judge, what the team is doing, but I'd say just evaluating what they have. They brought in a couple of players who might have solid chances at making the final roster. So we will see if those training camp contracts go anywhere, or, if, as Crystal said, if they're just extra bodies.
All right, Shorty, we'll visit the chat box real quick, get to one quick question that Todd Mintz has presented to us. Shorty, this is in regards to Dallas, and we'll go around the perimeter here, guys. Shorty, Todd is asking, does one think Pearson will become the super sub and Glory comes in to start right away after her suspension? Shorty, what do you think?
You know what? That is an interesting question from Todd. You know what? That will be interesting to see because from a standpoint, Glory is originally a starter. She is originally a starter, but I'm not quite sure what they'll do there, but it'll be interesting to see.
All right, so Crystal, there's one response, but we'll go to you now. And again, the question again from Todd, he's asking, does one think Pearson will become the super sub and Glory comes in to start right away following her suspension? KT, your thoughts?
I think possibly. I think she can. I mean, she's playing really well in training camp, and plus Pearson's getting kind of old in age, and Glory's more athletic, and I think she could do more, especially when it comes to defense. I mean, like Shorty said, Glory does have a tendency to play pretty wild, but I think once Glory learns how to control that, once she slows down, I think she will, after her 7-game suspension, become a starter.
All right, so Eric, there's two responses. What about you? Todd again presents the question. Do you think Pearson becomes the super sub and Glory comes in to start right away following her 7-game suspension?
I'm not sure if Glory is going to start right away, and here's why. Yes, it's true that Glory is younger and more athletic, and you're probably at a stage in Pearson's career where you want to limit her minutes. But Glory hasn't played in a WNBA game since 2014, so that's really significant. Just because she's younger and more athletic doesn't mean that she's still got to pick up. She's still got to start playing. She's still got to adjust to the pace of the game again and adjust to the physicality and whatnot. And as anybody can tell, as any player, I'm sure KT can attest to this, practice is a lot different than real games. So like you can practice your butt off, you can practice 24/7, but once you start playing, it's entirely different. So I think they're going to start Planette. This is just a guess, it's just a conjecture, but I think they're going to start Planette even after Glojo comes back for a little while, but maybe towards the end of the season, Glory will be starting once she gets back up to speed, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, Eric, I'd agree with you. You don't want to risk anything, putting that puzzle piece right in the equation once they get off suspension or off injury. Of course, you want to kind of ease them, so maybe spattering of minutes perhaps in the first couple games for Glory, then we'll pick the pace up a little bit later on. But again, thanks to Todd for the commentary in the network live chat box. All right, guys, the other major news of the day in the world of Olympic and women's international basketball, guys. Unconfirmed, confirmed, still unconfirmed, and throw the hands up in the air. Reports in, though, folks, that of the 12-player roster for the U.S. women's national basketball team who will aim for yet another gold medal at this year's Rio Olympic Games in August. They have left Candace Parker of the LA Sparks off of the final roster. Now, again, folks, we do not have any clear information from Carol Callan, no relation to me, who's the head chairwoman and chairman of the U.S. Women's National Basketball Organization and whatnot included. So obviously, Shorty, kind of a bit of a uproar so far in regards to what we have for now. Again, folks, this has been confirmed, unconfirmed, and still up in the air right now in regards to the story. So, Shorty, I believe that there is, it's a two-way street here in regards to pros and cons of this. Now, I'm just going to say this right now. Regardless of Candace Parker's on this roster or not, who out there is really going to, really test Team USA for the gold medal other than maybe Canada and maybe Australia? Other than that, it may be another easy pick and road for the U.S. women's national basketball team in the Olympic Games. Now, again, I know that anything can happen, but Shorty, I really don't see, if there's an uproar about this. I mean, we saw what she did do, though, coming off the rest when she took half of last season off. Shorty, I guess your overall thoughts, though, about, obviously the women, the USA women's basketball team leaving off, one of their, premier star players in the WNBA off the final roster at this point.
Oh my goodness, I was pretty much fuming when the news was announced, originally from Ramona Shelburne of ESPN LA. When she first broke the story, I'm like, what is this? Is this serious? Are they playing a joke on me? Like, seriously, Candace Parker, two-time Olympian already, and she's been a long time part of, the Olympics, and just to leave her out for Rio in favor of unconfirmed, but they say that the player that is going to replace her is Breanna Stewart. So that is interesting and somewhat problematic in itself because it follows the guidelines of, basically Gino and the committee favoring one of his players over, another player who, was a superstar, but, did not play under him, during college. So, I mean, Breanna Stewart is going to be great, definitely, even though she's coming in the early part of her career. She's going to be great in the future, but to, put her in ahead of someone like Candace Parker, I mean, it's crazy. And even though I know it's a logjam at that position, because you got Candace, you got Stewart, you got EDD, who can pretty much almost do the same things, but still, to just replace her in favor of Breanna Stewart, I mean, it's crazy. And it'll be interesting to see when the official list, comes out, because as of right now, it has been confirmed, but then, other reports or online are saying otherwise, so it'll be interesting once the list fully comes out.
And again, Chris, so that's the thing I brought up here right now. It's been confirmed, it's been unconfirmed, it's been up in the air, and right now we're going to call it up in the air because we have really no idea what's going to happen here, obviously. And I think that with the roster coming out this early, I think, for Rio, you're still 4 months away, roughly, from the start of the Olympic Games for basketball and just the Olympic Games in general, so a little bit, early, I'd say, about them releasing this roster. But again, Chris, like we said, though, there may be a bit of a logjam, though, but I think we're all getting at here is, how can you leave off someone, with the talent, of the caliber of Candace Parker off Team USA's roster? Like I said, regardless if she's on the roster or not, this could be another year where Team USA breezes by everybody in blowout fashion up until the final game, and they, win a more competitive game, but still win the gold medal, in my opinion. But I think, Crystal, what is your overall thoughts, though, again, about seeing Candace Parker, as of right now, again, being left off the final roster for the Rio Olympics in 2016?
It was pretty shocking initially to see that she won't be on the roster, but at the same time, I guess I'm just gonna have to wait and see what's really going on. I mean, there's a lot, there's rumors, there's he say, she say, there's a lot of things. So I guess the biggest thing we could do is just wait and see if Candace is gonna say anything or if anybody out of that camp will say or mention what happened. But I mean, initially I was shocked. I mean, it's kind of, you would think a person like Candace Parker would be a lock for the Olympics, and the thing that made it weird is she was doing all the promos and all of the photo shoots and all of the interviews, and I think a couple of days ago she was even tweeting something about, Road to Rio. So It's kind of weird and it's kind of shocking. So hopefully soon we'll understand what happened. We'll hear the real story.
And Eric, Todd just had a pretty good comment. He directs at me, but he says it's a lack of respect if Candace Parker is left off the final roster. But again, like we said, it's been confirmed, it's been unconfirmed, it's been up in the air, it's been misconstrued. So I mean, there's a lot of it's a circus act right now going on, with
true.
this going on. But Eric, I guess obviously we're in like the early stages of really finding out about this. It was broken a little bit earlier this afternoon about 4 o'clock. PDT this evening. But Eric, I guess overall thoughts though on this. Obviously, we're talking about a player, with a talent and caliber of Candace Parker. Again, being left off the Olympic roster, but like I've said already, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter if she's on the roster or not because, like I said, this could be another year of domination for Team USA going towards the gold medal. But what do you think though, and why?
Well, there are a few points I wanted to bring up here. Some people may not be happy with it, but this is just what I have to say. First of all, does anybody find it funny how this was reported? It wasn't, hey, here's the Olympic roster. It was breaking. Candace Parker does not make roster. Okay, they didn't actually tell us who was going to be on the roster. So I find that a little sketchy. I'm thinking somebody in someone's camp might have leaked something before it was intended to be released. Let's just put it that way. Also, we have not heard from either Parker herself or USA Basketball, so we don't know what's going on. Like I said, nobody's confirmed the roster, so we don't know what happened. And as Crystal said, she should have been a lock to make this roster, and she was doing all the promos and shoots and whatnot. So you would have thought that she'd be on this roster for sure. So something somewhere went wrong. We don't know what it was. But I'm gonna need everybody to just take a deep breath here because there's some pretty interesting things going around on Twitter right now. Some of it not so good, and just be careful what you guys say. Basically, that's all I want to say because I think the truth will come out shortly, whatever it may be, and I think people are maybe making a mountain out of a molehill. I think things will make more sense when the roster is released. We'll see, but also. When people talk about replacing her with Breanna Stewart, you guys got to keep in mind that yes, although there's a logjam at that position, Parker can play. She's arguably the most versatile player in the world, one of the few who can play so many positions. And I'm not sure if they're replacing her with Stewart. Keep in mind this is Tamika Catching's last Olympic run, so she's pretty much a lock. All right. So I don't want to hear any of this stuff like, oh, Gino, he's favoring UConn over Tennessee. That doesn't make any sense because Tamika Catchings went to Tennessee, and he's basically guaranteeing her a spot on probably starting. So that doesn't make any sense. And he's got a bunch of really aging guards, I would say. You got Sue Bird, Lindsay Whalen, Simone Augustus. Their Olympic credentials could be not credentials. I don't want to say that, but the validity of them making the roster at this point in their careers is questionable as well. So I think people are kind of overreacting on this. At the first breaking news, and once again, it's Candace Parker did not make the roster. We don't know why. We don't know who said it because the source was unnamed, of course. So it could have been some random person off the street. We don't know, although it probably wasn't. But just saying. So I think we need to wait until the actual roster is released in order to pass judgment. And honestly, this is Gino Auriemma we're talking about. He doesn't care what anybody says anyway. So. It's whatever to me. It doesn't really make that big of a difference to me.
So again, folks, right now, at this point, first reported by ESPN LA's Ramona Shelburne, confirmed reports, unconfirmed reports, up in the air, circus music, whatever you want to call it, folks. But as of right now, again, Candace Parker unofficially has been left off of the Rio 2016 women's basketball roster for Team USA. But Shorty, when I did see that, though, I kind of look at this, though, if in fact this is confirmed that she is off the roster, from my point of view, this for her and for Los Angeles, blessing in disguise because, Shorty, I'll just throw it out there. But what's going to weigh heavier for Candace Parker when it's all said and done, another gold medal or that WNBA championship? So I think it's a full-on blessing in disguise for Los Angeles if, in fact, Parker's off is off the Olympic roster because that will give her another chance to catch her breath again and not have to go through a whole gauntlet of the first half of the season, travel to Rio, play in the Olympics, and then come back and be, perhaps fatigued and out of, and perhaps fatigued from that, deep run in the Olympics, and then coming back for the second half of the season and potentially the postseason. Because Shorty, we know, I think that we all in here and all the folks watching know what Candace Parker is after, and I know damn well, Shorty, it's not after another gold medal. But I think, what is your thoughts though about, if in fact Parker's off the roster, what does her longevity mean for Los Angeles in the second half of the season in your mind?
I think, at her age right now, I mean, she just turned 30, which is young. It's still young, but, she is still at that age where she's getting, ready to take time off. She wants to spend more time with her daughter, and she wants to limit her playing overseas action. She didn't necessarily say she was going to quit, but she just wants to limit, because at her age she is getting, prepared for that time when she hangs it up. But just overall, there was a lot of conversation amongst Sparks fans between Twitter and Facebook as well, and they too actually say that it is a blessing in disguise, because I know personally for her it sucks, because she was doing all that promotion for Team USA to ultimately not make it for some reason. Again, we'll find out the truth on Wednesday, but overall, as I said, we talked about it and discussed things, and it's a blessing in disguise, because really now she can take some time off and she can focus on the season, and she can come back and play with the Sparks with a vengeance. Have a hopefully a MVP season that will ultimately lead to a WNBA championship.
And Crystal, like I said, when I read the story and I saw the headline, I thought, oh, this is going to be a really big relief for both the Sparks and for the Sparks fan base. And again, again, unconfirmed, but again, Crystal, she may not have to deal with the first half of the season, the travel to Rio, playing more games for Team USA, coming back, and again, perhaps being whacked out of shape and back for the second half. And again, with how the new format is, Crystal, it could be single elimination, then finally going to actual, series for the playoffs, and how, that will add, and log more miles on her body. So, Crystal, if in fact she's off the roster, if this is a confirmed report, as Shorty said, we'll have to wait till Wednesday. If in fact Parker is off the roster, how much of a blessing in disguise will this be for the LA Sparks team and for the fan base, knowing that they will have their, their MVP and star player for the whole WNBA season without the Olympics, looming?
I think it'll be a pretty big blessing. I mean, it gives her more time to just focus on the season and rest her body during the Olympic break, which is about like a month or a couple of weeks to a month. So it gives her time to rest her body and recharge and refuel. I mean, we all saw how great she played when she came back after resting those 3-4 months that she did last year. So I think, honestly, this is just going to be more motivation for her to try to actually win a championship and prove whoever made the selection or whatever happened wrong. I mean, like you said, we're still waiting on the full story. So, but I think for us LA Sparks fans, it's actually going to be pretty big for us. And as long as if she stays healthy, I think LA can go pretty far because of her.
So again, Eric, obviously, as Shorty brought those well, with her, getting up in age again, she just turned 30 about a week or so ago, back on April 19th again. And, all that off-season overseas play, when she was a rookie up until just recently when she was playing in Russia and all those extra miles logged, and then she took that half season off, half the season off last year. And everyone around the league saw how productive and how, how rejuvenated and refreshed she was after that break. So, Eric, if in fact Parker's off the roster, how much, how beneficial will it be for LA's longevity for the season, knowing that Parker will have another chance to catch her breath before the second half of the season, and perhaps, and for LA's hope and sake, a deep playoff run as well?
It's extremely meaningful, and you said it exactly right. When Parker came back after that half season of rest, which everyone was criticizing her for some reason. She came back and she played it at an MVP level. I think you could argue that she was the best player in the league during that span. And yeah, a month off, that's pretty big. When I said earlier, like, I don't really care who makes the roster. If, as a Sky fan, if this was breaking, Elena Deladon does not make USA final roster, I'd be like, oh, thank God, because she gets to take a month off and rest. Like, like it doesn't really, it's not that big of a deal to me. So Yeah, I think it's going to be huge for Candace's overall health and LA's playoff chances because they're going to get a rested Candace Parker, and we saw last season that that's a force to be reckoned with.
So with that, folks, again, I want to reiterate again what our schedule will be like now as we do move into training camp. We'll be keeping the shows at about half an hour for now. When there are preseason game, folks, and we have added the upcoming schedule of games for the first day of the preseason on the website on WNBA365.wix.com/WNBA365, folks. We will not start our Twitter and or Facebook. We can get our Facebook page up and running sometime this week. You will not have anything in regards to in-game updates, but more so final scores, what we'll have. But for the time being, folks, we'll be having half-an-hour programs for the time being during the course of the next couple of days and weeks of training camp as I do finish up my spring and winter announcing seasons. I got two more baseball series and perhaps 2 hockey games left, so we'll be keeping it at a minimum half an hour to roughly half an hour, folks. We'll be back with you folks on Wednesday night. We'll be off tomorrow and off Thursday and Friday. But with that, though, folks, thanks for stopping by and joining us here for the first full day, or pretty much our first full show day, I should say, of WNBA 365 Training Camp Central. Glad that you folks tuned in and joined us. For Eric Nemchok in Elmhurst, Illinois, for Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart, both up in Los Angeles, this is Callum McClurg signing off from Studio 171 in San Diego. Enjoy your night, folks. We'll see you folks back here on Wednesday to talk more women's hoops. See you folks back here on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock PDT, midnight Eastern. Until then, folks, good night. Bye-bye.